Good morning, Grace Covenant. It's Thursday, December 17th, and today in the Those Who Dream Devotional, we're invited to use an image created by Lyle Gwen Garrity, and she is evoking the Isaiah 61 passage about God's liberation of the captives and of the oppressed. And it elicited in me some wondering about us at Grace Covenant. And as we come up on Christmas 2020, after this year in COVID and our deepening work around dismantling white supremacy culture, and the way that we have been transformed and maybe even found new ways of understanding liberation in this year, how, as we approach Christmas 2020, have our understandings of liberation changed? And it particularly invited me to wonder about the understanding of oppression and the way believers in mainline denominations that have been more white, professional, upper and middle class people, that often the language of our prayers and the work of our churches has been more around kind of deficit understandings or helping those in need, not seeing ourselves as those in need, but easily kind of given to ideas of white saviorism, that white people are the ones that help others. And I think one of the things that comes up for me as I look back on 2020 is how much the vulnerability and the real embodied limitations and grief and understandings of our own captivity to systems of white supremacy and capitalism and patriarchy, how much that has shifted our shared understanding of what it means to be faithful people in these times. And what it particularly brings up for me is the truth of mutual liberation. That, in other words, that no one is free until everybody is free. And so while I resonate with Lyle's invitation to really gaze at this image of a sibling in the human race who is literally captive, literally behind bars, I'm very aware that the captivity of those who are incarcerated, the captivity of those who are oppressed by systems of mass deportation and systemic poverty and systemic racism, that their captivity is directly tied to the captivity of white normativity. In other words, it's my captivity. It's the captivity of other white people who are unaware or oblivious to our own captivity to these systems that keeps others in captivity. And so the whole idea of finding a way to turn our mourning into dancing, a way to break the chains of oppression, to be God's people in a world where there are systems that oppress us all. I hope as we come to the promise of incarnation and God with us at Christmas 2020, that we have a new, vivid, embodied, and visceral understanding that no one will be free until white people are free from our own captivity to systems of consumption and supremacy and domination and violence, and that we are particular carriers of that captivity in a way that puts others in bondage. And so my prayer for you today, as you consider this this work that God is doing in our midst, this work of liberation, my prayer for you today is that you too can touch into your own captivity and how that keeps others in bondage. And may we taste freedom in a new way, the shared joy of a world free, of a world living into God's promise of a new day, of mourning that becomes dancing, because finally we all know what it is to really be free. Blessings to you today, Grace Covenant.